by David Blain. I'm a colleague of his, John Gjertsen, and together we, along with another advisor, we are trying to make your financial problems solved. So one of our clients actually gave us a copy of an annual funding notice from a pension that they received money from. We've been talking a bit about defined benefit plans, how they operate, how they measure pension liabilities for future payments that they have to make. And I mentioned in the last segment that the moving ahead for progress in the 21st Century Act was something that passed, I believe, in 2012. And it's a bill that had mostly to do with highway funding, strengthening our highway system. But buried in the language of the bill was, as is often the case in Washington, they're unrelated things that kind of piggyback onto that bill. And one of those unrelated things changes how pension plans calculate their liabilities. So rather than using what interest rates are prevailing in the marketplace, which is what the Pension Protection Act of 2006 mandated that pensions do, they said, well, that's actually going to be kind of an onerous burden for these companies to have to shovel that much more money into their pension and come up with it from somewhere, because their pensions are going to basically look very underfunded because of very low interest rates. And I think, well, it's a little bit of an anomaly that interest rates are going to be low forever. So we're going to let companies use essentially the average over the last 25 years of interest rates and say, well, that's more indicative. That's going to smooth the pension, the required contributions out over time, and eventually interest rates will rise, certainly, right? Of course, Ben Bernanke has given us no indication that that's expected to happen anytime soon. So even though you can only get 2% on a bond or something, they're saying, well, we'll let you manage, we'll let you report your pension liabilities as though you could get 5% on a bond, and that's going to work out all right. So in this particular case, you have this particular pension. A client gave this to us, and they report in 2010 that their funding attainment percentage was 80%, meaning their assets were 80% of their calculated liabilities. In 2011, because of the additional contributions they made it 90%. That's great. That's great. We should feel very happy. And in 2012, they made even more additional contributions and brought their funding attainment percentage to 92.1%. So we should be very happy with this. If we're a participant in this pension, that feels very good. They're a little bit underfunded, but they're definitely improving. But the fine print is that actually uses the MAP 21 interest rates, and without any change to actually what happened with their assets, if you simply ignore those the interest rates that MAP 21 allowed the pension managers to use, then you find that their funding target attainment percentage went from 80% funded in 2010, 90% funded in 2011, 76.3% funded in 2012 without that sort of what I think of as an artificially high interest rate that's used. So I think that they're perhaps, by allowing them to state that they're 92.10% funded, it does a little disservice to the pension participant. So why is this all relevant? Why do I bring this up? Especially since so few people actually have defined benefit plans. As I mentioned in the first segment, some of you do. For the person that, for the client that hands us this and is receiving this pension, not a lot they can do about this. Of course, I don't think that their pension is really in danger. As someone who is presently, what this frightens me for is not the person who's presently receiving the pension, but the worker who is active in the pension plan, or not active yet in the pension plan, but is working and earning creditable years, and maybe their future pension defined benefit is not as protected. Maybe the company is taking more risks with their assets than they should. So why do I mention this? Well, there are pensions that that end, and there are situations in which people have options about whether they even. My wife was a teacher in Florida for many years, and she had an option whether to go into a defined benefit plan or to go into a defined contribution profit sharing arrangement. She could decide one way or the other. We opted for the defined contribution plan. There's other options that employees have when they retire. Many times they are given the option to take the pension or to take the pension at a lower amount with survivor benefits, or to take a lump sum, and they break it out 5 or 6 different ways that are actuarially equivalent, but they give you the options of whether or not just to take the money as your money, or whether to stay in the plan where they're going to pay you a set amount over time. And I just mentioned this because as a heuristic, I guess, when I evaluate these kind of things, obviously we want to look at the terms and see whether that makes any sense. But I guess on the balance, all things being equal, I would prefer to take my own risk with my own money, or the money that is due to me as a benefit from a company that I've worked for. I find it a little bit strange that people are much more willing to not take that some people would rather that the company take risk for them and on their behalf through a pension plan. I think it's a little dangerous when someone, whether it's the government or whether it's a private entity that you no longer work for, is taking the investment risks and making the investment decisions for you on your behalf, when that they may not actually be working in your interests, and they may be, as a result of some of these legislations, they may be playing some accounting games and setting themselves up for a future train wreck. So where you have options, I like getting the money inside an IRA and taking control of those assets and managing them according to an investment policy statement, which is formulated on the basis of my goals. That's what we like to do, and that's what we like our clients to do. Defined benefit plans can be a great thing, but it's a little scary at times if they're going to promise one thing but make squirrely assumptions and end up in a massively underfunded status. Well, this is about all the time I had on the show today. Just wanted to not scare you, but just open your eyes as to some of the shady games that the government sometimes plays, and I'll be back another day on All Things Money.
The proceeding was a paid program. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of WNBU and Inner Banks Media.